Sound. It seems like we've all known about it since school. But could something important have been missed in the school curriculum? Let's figure it out. We'll start with a quote that belongs to the famous Nikola Tesla. If you want to understand the secrets of the universe, you should think in three categories. The categories of energy, vibration, and frequency. Look at these and the amazing figures. Sound forms them. The figure almost perfectly fits into the ancient symbol called the flower of life. From this sign, a huge number of other symbols can be derived, which are considered main in many spiritual teachings. How does all this happen? How does sound form such correct geometric figures? In 1680, the English scholar Robert Hooke conducted a curious experiment. Hooke, running a stylus along the edge of a plate covered with flour, noticed how its shape changes. Later, Ernest Chladni, a German physicist, repeated Hooke's experiment, but he experimented with the position of the stylus, its length and width of the hair, and discovered that a certain frequency forms a geometrically correct pattern, which he described in his book Theory of Music. The drawings on the plate were later named Chladni figures. At the end of the 20th century, Swiss scientist Hans Jenny reproduced Chladni's experiment using modern equipment. And here's what came out of it. Look, it looks like the movement of galaxies. And this strangely reminds of a spine, or in other words, a vertebra. Interesting Russian word, in which something goes along the rings, maybe under the rings, meant what in other traditions is called a chakra. In all other languages, the vertebra is called differently, but one way or another is associated with roots axis and spin. And, for example, in English, the vertebra is called spine, and the rings are called from the word spin, and have a root in Latin as the vertebra should sound. We will tell a little later. And now another important moment. In school, what's there in school? Even in Wikipedia, they tell us that like any wave, sound is characterized by amplitude and frequency spectrum. Here's such a sine wave, but this is a two-dimensional picture. What if we make it three-dimensional? Then it will be a spiral. A spiral, consisting of two streams, has been depicted in the ornaments of most peoples since ancient times. Here is the Eastern ribbon ornament, and here is the ornament on the half shekel in Israel. Here are a few more examples of similar ornament. Mesopotamia, Greece, Mauritania, and, of course, elements of ancient Russian zodiac and tombstones of the 17th century. In the mythology of many peoples of the world who did not contact each other, there are myths about the original act of creating the universe. For example, in the texts of the Egyptian pyramids, it is said that the god Thoth created the universe with the sound of his voice, and then the god Ptah took over to organize it. In India, it is believed that the sound of Aum was the first manifestation of the yet unmanifest Brahman, giving rise to the perceivable universe, which came from the vibration caused by this sound. In Taoism, the combinations and interactions of yin and yang form the qi energy or oscillations into vibration and ultimately everything that exists. The Hopi Indians tell a story about a spider woman who sang a song about creation over the unanimated forms on Earth, giving them life. In Australian Aboriginal tradition, the didgeridoos sound helped create the world. In many African legends of different tribes, it is told that the world came from sound. In Polynesia and the Far East, gods and goddesses struck gongs or mollusk shells to create the world. And let's think about this. What if light is also sound? Light is also a wave or a spiral. It also has a certain frequency. The difference from the sound we hear is in the intensity and pitch of the sound. Light is measured in terahertz, or hertz multiplied by 10 to the power of 12. It is the wave, in other words, the spiral nature of light that is demonstrated by the famous double-slit experiment in quantum physics, first conducted by Thomas Young. In essence, light is an ultrasonic sound of enormous intensity. As any wave spiral has its number of cycles or oscillations per second, frequency, and its amplitude, loudness. There is a conditional table of correspondence of a certain color and notes, if they sounded in the audible range for us. Very approximately, the main spectra red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet give us a sequence of tones and semitones if we take the sound row from the note 100, which in its structure corresponds to 512 hertz. In Photoshop, designers use millions of colors of the color gamut, which is again related to music, where the gamut is a sequential relationship of tones and semitones. Now let's get back to the caller. At the intersection of two streams, energy centers, chakras, are formed, which are translated from Sanskrit as a wheel. Ideally, all 7 main wheels should spin correctly to generate a sequential frequency and the corresponding spectrum from red to violet. The oldest symbol of the rising and falling streams and chakras at their intersection is the caduceus. So, knowing that there are 7 main chakras along the spine, and each of them has a specific frequency and one of the 7 color spectra, and also knowing that a certain frequency forms a specific geometric pattern, we can assume that on the subtle plane, there are indeed geometric figures formed by the spiral flow of chakras. These figures are beloved in Eastern tradition. It is generally known that the brain's operation has a certain frequency from 1 to 4 Hertz delta waves in a spiral, from 4 to 8 Hertz theta waves, from 8 to 30 Hertz alpha waves, and from 30 to 40 Hertz beta waves. Therefore, thoughts are also waves spirals by their nature. So in some sense, sound doesn't really exist. Everything just obeys the same laws of nature, which we will now look at not on a human scale, but on a cosmic scale. Cosmos. There is such a rule of Titius Bode. Titius is a German physicist and mathematician who proposed in the 1760s that all the orbits of the planets in the solar system are at a clear geometric progression from the Sun. Johann Bode, a German astronomer in the 1770s, released a series of works that fueled interest in this topic. The Titius-Bode rule was considered a theory until Uranus was discovered in the 1780s, which practically perfectly fit the predicted sequence. However, the progression lacked one planet between Mars and Jupiter, where an asteroid belt was located. Scientists call this once existing planet Phaeton. Progress is rooted in a simple formula. Let's return to the Hladny figures. Observe how sound shapes planetary orbits on the experiment table. In celestial mechanics, there is also the concept of orbital resonance, a situation where the periods of revolution of 2 or more celestial bodies are related as small integers. As a result, these bodies periodically approach each other, being at certain points of their orbits. The resulting regular changes in the gravitational interaction of these bodies can stabilize their orbits. For example, Jupiter's satellites rotate, forming 2 octaves. Pluto and some other objects of the Kuiper belt, so-called Plutinos, are in an orbital resonance of 2 to 3, a clean fifth with Neptune. 2 orbits of Pluto around the Sun correspond in time to 3 orbits of Neptune. Saturn and Jupiter are almost in exact resonance, 2 to 5. Trojan asteroids are in a 1-to-1 resonance with Jupiter, located at Lagrange points 4 and 5. Jupiter's satellites, Ganymede, Europa, and Io, are in a resonance of 1 to 2 to 4. Pluto's satellites are in a resonance of 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. And what's going on beyond the boundaries of the solar system? The renowned Kepler Space Telescope has discovered exoplanet pairs in 9 systems and tetraplanetary quintets in 2 additional systems. In 5 cases, scientists encountered 2-to-1 type orbital resonances. In other words, the periods of revolution of the found planets are in a 2-to-1 ratio, which is a pure octave. 4 more systems revealed resonances of a 3-to-2 type, which is a pure fifth. A close phenomenon is spin-orbit resonance, when the orbital motion of a celestial body and its rotation around itself synchronize and Mercury revolves around the Sun in a spin-orbit resonance of 3 to 2, a pure fifth. That is, for 2 Mercurian years, the planet completes 3 rotations around its axis. The Moon, when rotating around the Earth, is always facing one side, a spin-orbit resonance of 1 to 1. And also, planets in the sky move in eccentric orbital models, dancing to the music of the cosmos. There is more mathematical and geometric harmony in these movements than we think. John Martineau's book, A Little Book of Coincidence, illustrates orbital models and some of their geometric coincidences. Here's the drawing that results from the rotation of Venus and Earth. Here are similar figures of other planets: Earth and Mercury, Saturn and Jupiter, Mars and Earth, Uranus and Saturn. And here are the relations between the outer orbit of Earth and the inner orbit of Venus, into which a square is inscribed. The sizes of the Moon and Earth are inscribed in the square of the circle in this way. Moreover, the perimeters of the dotted square and the dotted circle have the same length. The perimeter of the dotted red square is equal to 4 diameters of the Earth. The circumference of the dotted blue circle is equal to twice the radius, that is, 99 whole and 9/10%. The same harmony is observed in other systems. Amazing ratios, aren't they? What do you think all this can be explained by? All these coincidences, numbers, figures, symbols, by the laws of nature or rational intervention. Let's think about this in the comments under the video. If the frames from this video surprised you, rate this video. And be sure to set up notifications. After all, new, no less interesting and exciting releases are waiting for you ahead. To new meetings!